Welcome to the Upland Nation podcast. Thank you for joining us. My name is Scott Linden. I'm the host. I'm also the host of Wing Shooting USA, the TV show. We have some great guests on the agenda this week. One of my favorites, and a guy who, speaking of television, kind of provided the inspiration, the motivation, if you will, for me getting into the business. We'll talk more about that with Dez Young. You know his original show title, Hunting with Hank. We'll talk more about that and all sorts of other great stuff. In addition, a public access tip for everybody, some hunting strategy and dog handling advice, and a quiz and a prize. It's all coming up on this episode of the Upland Nation podcast, so stick around. First off, let's thank our sponsor, sageandbreaker.com. If you're looking for, well, the gun cleaning and care gear that will last a lifetime, and then you'll be able to hand it down to one of your heirs, it's all at sageandbreaker.com. From gun mats and bore cleaning to a brush and pick roll. If you'd like to watch some videos on how this stuff all works and how to maybe do it right, that's one of the challenges I face, well, go to sageandbreaker.com. Lots of helpful videos on gun cleaning and gun care. All of it's guaranteed. It's free shipping for everybody in the U.S. all the time. Register at their website for a chance to be on their mailing list and get notification of the one or two big sales they have every year. It's all at sageandbreaker.com. Once you're done taking care of your gun, then you can learn something from both me and from that guy back there. If he's surviving, his name is Dez Young. Dez, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm doing fine. Just a summer cold. They're probably the worst kind of colds to get, I think.
It just makes you mad that it would happen when everything else is going so well from a weather standpoint, huh?
Yeah, no kidding. And my new boy Chance is looking at me like, "Come on, we have to get a workout in here."
If only it was that easy. Yeah.
Exactly.
You're like me. You're constantly rotating dogs through the house. Tell me about the new one.
Chance is a Llewellyn setter. He's out of the Hank and Dash lineage from our TV shows. And like I guess you've probably had the same experience I have. Some breeds are just, they're just darn nice guys. And Chance is right along that line. He's a sweet boy, easy to train, loves to hunt, and he's a nice member of the house, just like Hank and Dash were.
It's funny. A lot of people, less these days, but over the weekend, I ran into a couple other folks who said, "No, my dog never comes in the house. He's got a really nice kennel." But for the most part, if you're a one or a two dog family, we're gonna have to live with them 24/7, aren't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, out of that comes all sorts of things. Everybody's heard my lecture about a dog learning all the time. But what do you get out of that kind of more personal approach to dog training, if you will?
I'm not as skilled at the training aspect as you are. So I felt when I first got Hank, who was my very first pointing dog, I'd had Labradors before that, I went to some guidance. I pulled up Richard Wolter's book, Gun Dog, and I read that cover to cover, and I gleaned some things out of that. And so when Hank was a baby, I started his training, as Wolter suggested, at 7 weeks of age, and worked first with all the obedience training issues, and then took him into the field and worked with us quartering back and forth, and then worked into retrieving, and then put live birds out. And what amazes me, Scott, is the instinct is so powerful. All he did was track through the field. I'd placed the pigeon out for him, and I was just stunned. The first time he picked up the scent, he slowed his pace, creeped a few feet, and locked into a pause. And I thought, wow, so that's how it works.
That's the moment I decided to buy a shotgun.
Yeah, really. It was just fun to watch.
It is, and it sounds like that's kind of the magic for you. What else about working with dogs like that is high on your list of priorities?
Well, I grew up in a household with dogs. Not anything particular, just all kinds of varieties of ducks, some mixed, just nice guys. They were all boys, and they were just all nice guys. And I learned from my work with them as a young boy what I could and couldn't do to make them be a good part of the family. And so I just sort of carried that into my adulthood. And then when I read Richard Wolter's book and learned a little bit more about pointing breeds, I found that the training process was pretty similar. Pardon me. But there were some minor changes when it came to a pointing dog versus a flushing dog. So I read all of that, studied all that, and when I got Hank, I thought, well, I'll try Richard Wolter's techniques, and my gosh, there you go. And then now Hank's in the Bird Dog Hall of Fame.
Well, there you go.
Really?
You must have done something right.
Yeah, the biggest issue is I'm not there. So,
well,
they wanted Hank, but they didn't want me.
They have, you can't blame them for having good taste, I guess.
No kidding. Yeah. So Hank is there, and it was a thrill to have. I went down to. I'm not sure if you've been there, Scott. I went down to the National Bird Dog Hall of Fame in Grand Junction, Tennessee,
mm-hmm.
and that's where Hank's portrait hangs among all the great field trial dogs, which I was never skilled enough to do. But what a thrill to see him down there.
Oh, I bet. I haven't been there yet, but it's on the list. That's for sure.
You'll absolutely love it.
You bring up something that I don't know that I've thought about before, because we generally jump in when we cross paths. It's in an airport or it's in some convention hall, and we're trying to skip all the preliminaries and get caught up from the last time. Did you grew up with dogs, but it doesn't sound like they were hunting dogs.
No, they weren't. They were just family dogs, and I loved all of them. They were just nice guys. We actually had, when I was young, we lived on a ranch in eastern Oregon near my hometown of Pendleton. And so we had dogs all the time, and I was with them all the time. And of course, as a kid, I didn't really do any training, but still it was just neat to see when our dogs would get out involved in the outdoors, how excited they would get. And so that's sort of where my basis for wanting to have a bird dog came around, when I designed and came up with the Hunting with Hank concept.
So what was the motivation there? Back in those days, breaking into television was a lot harder than it is now. Anybody with a smartphone and a second mortgage can be on TV these days. But back then, you had to do things right. Tell me a little bit about your start in that world.
Well, as I think you recall, because we visited about this before, I started my professional career as a singer,
mm-hmm.
and you and I have a lot of common ground there too. And so that led me into television in the local market here in where I live in Portland, Oregon, and then that led me into meeting people all around the country, and that led me into getting from King Little and Kennels in Arkansas this fabulous young puppy that I named Henry, Prince of Paws, and called him Hank. And so I started training Hank. I mean, you know what this is like. I know you've gone through this too. It just hits you. You think, wow, this guy's pretty good. And with my television experience and my performing experience, I thought, well, why don't we see what we can do? So I spent my own money, as you probably have on many occasions, and did a pilot program and sent that to the Outdoor Life Network at the perfect time, Scott. They were looking for programming. I mean, it was just serendipity. I sent that into them, and the first thing that happened was they called and said, okay, let's do 7.
I love it. Well, yeah, it's a little different today, but that's pretty much how I started as well, for that matter.
Yeah.
But it must be gratifying to still hear from fans, and a million of them have asked questions on my Facebook page. That we'll get to a few of them. Bobby, Keith, Derek, David, and Dean, hang on. We're going to get your questions in.
Good.
But
I'll be happy to address it.
What is it? What did you enjoy most about making what I'll just consider a landmark program in the bird hunting television world?
Oh my gosh, thank you. That's so thoughtful of you. Well, let's see. You and I have many similarities. One of which is we like people, and I had the greatest crew. I had done some local promotion work here in the Portland market on television, where I met who was going to be my director, Bob Corley, and we became friends. And then when I came up with the Hunting with Hank concept, I went to Bob and said, well, what do you think? And he said, okay, let's do it. So he and I took Hank out. We did a pilot show together, sent it into the Outdoor Life Network, and honest to God, I'm telling you, Scott, I had no idea. I sent it into the Outdoor Life Network, and the first thing that happened was they called and said, okay, let's do it.
Well, those are. I believe you do actually have a few more copies. You keep getting requests for DVDs, and
Sure,
so if anybody out there is listening and they want to get their hands on a set of DVDs, how do they do that?
Oh, how thoughtful of you. Well, it's pretty simple. The name of my production company is HWH for Hunting with Hank. HWH Productions, and they can just send me a request, and for the DVDs at 5346 Southwest 33rd Drive in Portland, Oregon, and that's 97239. And the DVD covers both the boys, both Hank and Dash, and some of the adventures that we went on, the ones that I thought were probably the most fun and the most interesting for viewers to see. I even sent one show in that I don't know if you've experienced this, but we hunted forever in the forest to find a rough grouse. I mean, we hunted forever. And we got one rough grouse on camera, and I threw a shot out there, and the bird fell. I mean, honestly, Scott, I couldn't believe it. So, and it was just one of those, you take your chances when you're going after wild birds as opposed to released birds. And so we did a number of released bird shows for the thrill of seeing my boys working. And then we did a few live wild bird shows too, just because that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah. And that's funny that, a lot of people wonder why we don't do a lot of what I'll call public ground wild bird shows. The fact of the matter is, it's a bird hunting show. You got to have birds on the show, and there is a finite amount of time we can spend in the field. The guys who work for us, they work by the day, so we got enough editorializing. But the reality is, we need some of that. But for a while there, speaking of that sort of thing, you were on the air. I was on the air as I was just starting out. And we were going up and down the West Coast about the same time for a couple seasons. And you were at the lodge the week before I was, or I was at the lodge the week before you were. Of all of those trips, and I mean, nationally or even internationally, what pops up as a highlight of your television hunting career?
Oh, gosh, what a wonderful question. Okay, I first thing that pops in my mind is having the opportunity, because of Hank and his shows, having the opportunity to be invited to go to Uruguay and hunt birds in Uruguay and do a special on Uruguay bird hunting. Golly, Scott. I mean, really, all the way across there to Uruguay, we hunted perdiz, which is a upland bird, and the scenery and the people and the opportunity to do that. We got invited to go to Scotland to hunt red grouse in the Scottish moors. And, how many guys like you and I who pack a shotgun around have a chance to do that?
Yeah, exactly. And luckily we can watch you do it because the likelihood of our doing it is fairly low. When you go out, whether it's Scotland for red grouse or anything else, it might be valley quail in eastern Oregon for that matter. Which
we did.
Yeah. What do you find most enjoyable about the hunting experience?
Oh, well, you and I are dog guys, so this is not going to surprise you when I tell you that the biggest thrill for me was watching my boys. and seeing the work they did and how the training that I put into them and that you put into your dogs comes to fruition when you put them out in the field and their instinct kicks in and their training kicks in. And the next thing you know, you've got a beautiful point and birds are jumping everywhere. And what a thrill. I mean, gosh, how lucky you and I are to be able to do that.
Amen to that. Hey, before I forget, let's get to the first question from some of your fans. Bobby Westbrook asks you, other than just putting your dog on wild birds, how do you tune up your dog before the bird season starts?
Well, I've always felt that I would give them the spring off, and then starting in summer, early in the morning, I'd take my boys, and I still do this with my new guy. I'd take these guys into the local park here before anybody else gets in there, work them on their commands, get them some exercise, work them on retrieving, and getting all of that accomplished. And then when fall gets here, they're in pretty good shape to get out and go after them.
So you give them a little bit of a break, and understanding what they do for a living, I think that's probably not a bad idea. Give them a chance to kind of reset their muscular structure, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, we got to take a real quick break here. You can take a sip of water, and I'll call you back in a moment. In the meanwhile, everybody else, hang on, because Hank won't be with us, but his big boss will. Dez Young will stick around. This is the Upland Nation podcast, and so. In the meanwhile, if you will please pay attention to this brief commercial message. And this part of the Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by HuntHuronSD.com. My friends in Huron, South Dakota have 140,000 acres of public access. The birds outnumber the people in Beadle County. Friendly, helpful, and they've got a free information packet for you. Just go to HuntHuronSD.com. They'll send it to you. Maps, lists, discount coupons, all sorts of promotional opportunities. It's all free. And I'll see you there. HuntHuronSD.com. All right. So, Dez, have you survived your coughing fits? And are you ready to chat a little bit more?
Absolutely. Yeah, you bet. Well, those of us that have been performing our whole lives, we just know how to get up and get going out. And I honestly, Scott, when I started singing for a living, when I was, 2 or 3, somewhere in there, and would get a cold, I'd want to quit. But my manager said, no, suck it up and get out there and sing. And so I guess I learned pretty early that you just keep moving. And on one of our shows we taped in New England, I literally had pneumonia. And, but we only have, you know what this is like when you're out taping shows, you only have so much time. You got to get the show in. And so I was out there in the middle of this New England jungle hunting rough grouse, trying my best not to cough and hack into the microphone.
Speaking of which, I have a similar story, but it was in the desert of New Mexico. We all caught it, but the show must go on, like you said. And so if you watch that episode of Dez's, or if you watch that episode of mine, we're doing it for you folks out there. So thank you for putting up with us.
And I don't know what your director was like, but mine kept saying, "Come on, Dez, just get out there and do it."
Slave drivers, yep. Yeah, but God bless them. They make us look smarter and skinnier than we are, and that's all I ask. We're in this little segment that I call Handle It, which is all about how we relate to our dogs. And one of the things that I've discovered over the years is dogs that have confidence in you don't seem to be so inclined to, if you will, disobey. And I'm thinking of a particular hunt I did in South Dakota where somebody else was creeping up on my dog as if they thought he was going to break. And they were mincing in from across the way, and they, the dog was just quivering and looking out of the corner of his eye, wondering if this guy's ever going to actually take charge of the situation. Maybe your dogs are better than that, but do you have any advice for people about helping their dogs obey better through the use of, for lack of a better term, psychology?
Well, I'll confess this to you. Now, don't tell anybody this, okay? This is just between you and me.
All right.
When I got Hank, he was my first pointing dog. I'd had Labradors before, and, that's a different training process. And right along with me, Hank learned, as I did, what the situation is with a pointing breed versus an upland flushing dog. And bless his heart, he just was so patient and took all the commands, all the advice. And when he'd make a mistake, I don't know how you do this, but the only thing I could think of was, rather than get after him verbally, but I just back him up and we'd try it again. Mm-hmm. And eventually he picked up on that. And the same thing happened with his boy Dash when we were doing our Dash shows with him. And it was just, as an amateur trainer, I really relied a lot on what I read about how to train bird dogs, because honestly, Scott, I just didn't have the tools mentally to do it myself without some help.
Well, you hit on something that is so true, and one of my good friends in the training world is Ronnie Smith Jr. of the, Rick Smith
right.
and Ronnie Smith. And
right.
Ronnie instilled in me something that I wish I could be better at. God, like the bumper sticker says, help me become the person my dog thinks
right.
I am.
Love that.
Yeah. But Ronnie over and over would say, "Don't get mad. Don't get mad." The dog doesn't get it. Don't get upset about this stuff. Just like you said, go back, take it maybe a couple steps backwards and that sort of thing. Another question from a fan of your show and of you, from Derek Moore. What's your favorite hunting memory with Hank and Dash?
Oh, golly. What a great question. My favorite. I guess I'd have to rely on going back to what my favorite bird to hunt is, which would be the ruffed grouse. And taping shows with those boys in the deep woods of New England, what a thrill that was, to be able to go into those woods, take those boys in there, and through acres and acres and acres of woods, find birds. I mean, and my director, of course, was thrilled, because he had to pack that, well, you know what it's like, he had to pack that 25-pound camera plus batteries with me to find these birds. And gosh, what just an amazing thrill that was for me.
Oh, I bet.
was so thrilled. Yeah. And then, of course, you know what this is like. Then the dog goes on point, and then you're thinking, okay, I can't miss this shot. And so then there's the pressure of making sure you get a shot off and get the bird.
I didn't know that was a rule. I'm not supposed to miss. I do. I know the feeling, and I actually know the exact feeling you're describing. I was lucky enough to make a couple shows in upstate New York, and then back in the day, fly fishing show up there in the cradle of fly fishing in the United States, and just being around all of that. Many of us who are in the bird dog world or even the fly fishing world, it's all about that kind of that heritage, the legacy that we are living every time we bring a dog along.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it works.
Well, you and I are like in many ways. I love fly fishing. I have. Unfortunately, my wife reminds me of this quite often. I have several fly rods in different weights. And the question she always asks is, okay, tell me exactly now why you need a 3-weight, a 5-weight, a 7-weight, a 9-weight, a 12-weight. And I have to explain, well, there's specific reasons for each fly rod.
Mm-hmm. And here's, the answer to this question. This Pat McManus told me the answer to this first. You know how many fly rods is enough?
I interviewed him once too. What a great guy!
Yeah, the answer.
Go ahead.
Well, the answer is one more.
Yeah, one more. And I had the privilege of interviewing him on television when I was doing my television show here in Portland. He came through with one of his books, promoting one of his books. Mm-hmm. So I got a chance to interview him. What a delightful guy, and as funny in person as he was in his writing.
Oh, yeah. Great guy. He and I collaborated on a project or two over the years. Of course, when I was working with Outdoor Life magazine, he was writing the back page. And we came this close to creating an animated television series about his stories.
Wow.
Which I still would love to do.
The reason I bought the Outdoor Life Network was for his articles.
Well, that's great. Yeah, Keith Clayton has a question for you that we can both relate to, and let's trade notes on this one. Any tips on how to travel long distances with your dog to make it comfortable for the dog and easier for the owner?
Oh, yeah. Well, boy, yeah, we have a lot of experience with this, don't we? For my boys, when we flew, of course, they had to be in a carrier. So the carrier that I had for them was set up as with a carpet and soft material on the sides, soft material on the top in case there was a bump in the air and they bounce up into the top of the crate. And always made sure, as I'm sure you do, that the last thing I did before we boarded was take them outside and give them one more chance to relieve themselves before I put them in there, and then pick them up the instant they landed and take them outside again so they're comfortable, and then off we go. It wasn't, I don't know how you felt about it, but it wasn't easy for me the first time because, the carrier it's a tough spot for them to be in when they're being handled by people they don't know, and they're taken into the back, and then they're put in the back of the plane. I mean, it can't be easy for them.
No, not at all. And I cross my fingers every time I hear a story like that. I love the idea of padding the roof, the ceiling of the box. So that sure makes a lot of sense. Mine would have more to do with driving. We drive virtually everywhere now, and I'm putting way more miles on my truck than I thought I would. But I always bring more local water than I think I'll use. I hope my dog will be drinking my water the whole time, as opposed to contending with softer water, harder water, different chemical composition like that. And I have giant containers for that sort of stuff. So both of those are probably worth making a note of. You've been out there, you've done a lot of this sort of thing. By the way, that's Dez Young. I'm Scott Linden. This is the Upland Nation podcast. Dez, you've talked to a lot of people. You've hunted with a lot of people. What do you think is the number one mistake that most of us make when we go out into the field, whether it's dealing with dogs or strategy or something like that? You've seen it all, I'm sure.
Wow, that's a really interesting question. Well, of course, the first thing that pops into my mind, as I'm sure it does for you, is I'm very, very careful with people I don't know and watching their gun safety. I mean, if you can't think of anything else, just make sure the gun safety issues are covered thoroughly, because there's no, I don't know if you know this, Scott, I don't know if I ever told you this. When I was a teenager living in Pendleton, my buddies and I grabbed our shotguns in the winter and would go up to a stream that flows through Pendleton called the Umatilla River. And in the wintertime, the mallards would drop in there from the wheat fields, and we jumped ducks on the Umatilla River. And my friend had his shotgun safety off as we were walking up to a piece of water where we knew ducks were sitting in, and he tripped, and the shotgun went off, and it was aimed in my direction. And I took BBs in my legs and had to be rushed to the hospital to dig them all out. And that was a sobering experience. That's one of the reasons why on our shows, as I know you've done many times also, I've always talked about, in gentle terms at least, not beating people over the head with it, the importance of gun safety in the field, especially when you're hunting with somebody else and have a bird dog in front of you.
Absolutely. If nothing else, there's no life worth risking for a bird. And we're doing a lot more with kids on the show these days, and so we have a little fun with it as well. It becomes a pop quiz every few minutes in the show. Boy, it's a wonder you weren't soured to hunting after that.
Well, growing up in the country, that's just what we did. We hunted and fished, and so it was a sobering experience, I must say, when I got to thinking about the fact those pellets could have done a lot worse damage than they did on my legs. And so I guess that's maybe one of the reasons why I've always been so conscious about that in the field. When I've taken people out with me or with Hank and with Dash, I've always been very concerned about how they're handling their shotgun and making sure they're doing all the right things.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, all I can do is echo all of that and more. One of the things that
By the way, I don't know if I ever told this. I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you before, but I'm so proud of you and the way you handle yourself on camera and the issues that you discuss with your viewers and the way you treat your guests and the way you treat your hunting partners and the game birds that you hunt. I mean, it's really it's refreshing to see, and it's a great lesson for all of us who enjoy the outdoors. And I'm so glad you're still doing that.
Thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate that. And hopefully I'll be doing it for a little while longer. You know, you could every year, as you well know, every year you wonder about those sort of things. And, you know, I don't want to harp on it, but a lot of folks don't realize that these days we producers, we incur all the financial risk.
Right.
Unlike back when you were doing it, when I started in that business, when networks actually would give you money or give you airtime. Now it's the other way around. Right. But we won't dwell on that. Let's talk about the fun stuff. You know, is there anything that's happened to you over the years, whether it's on the air or off the air, that is just it's just so I don't know what to call it, so memorable that you want to share it with us one more time?
Oh, well, as with you, there are many, but honestly, Scott, to be able to go to Scotland and stand in the Scottish moors and look out across that country and hunt those grouse was an amazing experience. To be able to do that because I had a bird dog that people love to watch, and we got a chance to do that. Well, you know, what an absolute thrill and privilege, really, to be able to do that. I've never forgotten that, and just absolutely loved those shows we did in Scotland. And then, of course, we did shows in Uruguay as well, but still, just Scotland. I mean, really, the birthplace of bird hunting really was an absolute thrill.
Is there anything in particular about that? Because it's on my bucket list, and I actually turned down that invitation this past year. What about that area besides the legacy? I mean, is it the birds? Is it the gorse that you're walking through? Is it? Tell me more.
Well, I think the first thing that struck me was hunting grouse in the Scottish moors. There's a tremendous history there, and just being there from the history standpoint was amazing. Then to walk through those moors and find these beautiful birds in there was it's a thrill that I really can't express. It was just an amazing experience. And then to be able to do a show about it, my gosh! And then we won awards for it. I know you've won a lot of awards yourself, and to win an award for something we've done that we loved was a huge bonus.
Yeah, that's for sure. You know, over there they handle dogs differently, and the protocols, if you will, on an what they call a rough shoot over there, right, are different than what we might be used to. How did that all work for you?
Well, I felt as a guest, I felt it was important that I followed what they wanted me and my camera crew to do, and so we just followed their orders and their suggestions and guidance, and it turned out great. I made sure that they knew we were there to promote their location and their bird hunting and to do what they needed to have done to get that accomplished, and we had an absolutely wonderful time doing that. It was just a thrill. And my director and our B cameraman were wonderful at that, and you know, one of the things you and I have loved about these things that we do is meeting all these different people and finding how the universal aspect of loving to hunt birds is there, and it's just what a great thrill that was. I was so, like you, I was just so lucky.
You know, I mean, even if we never get to Scotland, you see some guy parked next to you and he's got a dog box in his truck. You're probably going to start a conversation, aren't you?
Absolutely. You bet.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot in common. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, Dez Young, the television star, the bird dog guy, if you look up bird dogs in the dictionary, that's Dez's picture. He's the one on the left. The one on the right is one of his dogs. Tell us something about you we don't know.
Let's see. Something you don't know about me. Well, I'm not sure how much I talked about this on our shows. I started as a professional singer at the age of 19 in the folk music era. And so I got used to being in front of audiences really young and performed on the same. Gosh, Scott, I performed in the same show with John Denver as the final act, and I was one of the leading acts, and the Kingston Trio, and Peter, Paul, and Mary. Come on.
So Peter, Paul, Mary, Kingston Trio, and Dez. Oh, and that other guy.
Yeah, right. So you know how that works. They warm up the audience with these warm-up acts, and I was one of the warm-up acts. And you stand out there singing your heart out, and you look out into this mass audience, and 3 people are paying attention. I mean, that's
I finally figured out. Yeah, I played a Broadway show once, and I finally figured out that's why the lights are so bright shining on you, so you can't see how many unfilled seats there are out there.
Oh, yeah, I know. But it's you're paying your dues. That's the way I always felt about it. I'm just paying my dues. And so then I'd write letters home to Mom saying, "Mom, don't worry about me. Everything is fine. I'm paying my dues. I'm okay."
Yep, it's so true. And if you talk to the pros in that world, the first thing they'll tell you is it doesn't matter whether it's a supermarket grand opening or the Carnegie Hall. Take the gig.
Right.
You'll be better for it.
Okay, so now don't tell anybody this, okay? I actually sang at an outdoor venue for a car lot opening. Can you pop that one?
I would have to work at that.
People are walking around looking at cars. I'm standing in this little, they put these little mobile home offices on a parking lot, and they put a stand mic on the porch of this mobile home, and I was singing folk songs while people were out in the parking lot cruising through the various cars.
Yeah, you were the background music back before Muzak was invented, I bet.
Oh my God.
Well, and a lot of people may not know this, but it finally came full circle, and you did a lot of the music for your TV shows.
I did all of it. Yeah, that's right. I did all of it. I wrote all the music, wrote the music, sang the lyrics, played the guitar, and then filled in other instruments through that fabulous system where you can go into the studio and they can pull up different kinds of musical instruments and fit them in. And that's so I did all the music for all of our shows. Yeah.
Someday I will write one song about bird hunting and bird dogs, but I just haven't gotten it in me yet. And then I'd have to learn how to play it, and that may be the hardest part right there.
It was just, I don't know, Scott. You just get lucky, and I did.
Yeah, I'm knocking wood as you say that because I feel much the same way. We're getting towards the conclusion of our discussion, and boy, am I grateful your voice has held out as well as it has.
Happy to do it. Good to talk to you again, my friend.
Thank you, and maybe another airport another day real soon. But in the to close it out, you've got still a ton of fans out there. In fact, I put on my Facebook page, hey, if you want to ask a question, go here, blah blah. That as of today is one of my more popular Facebook posts, and it's because of you. Oh. If you wanted to tell all these people out there something, anything about life or bird hunting life, what would your message be to them?
Wow. Well, I can tell you what I thought. I never took it too serious. I'm like you in many regards. I didn't take it too seriously. It was fun. It was great to be able to perform on camera and to be able to take my boys out and have viewers across the country see them. But it was honestly, Scott, it was just fun. It was fun. I just had such a great time. And when people ask me about bird hunting, the first thing I always like to say to them is, look, gosh, don't put pressure on yourself. Just have a good time, enjoy the dog work, enjoy the birds. If you miss, so what? And just get out there and enjoy it.
because it's such a great opportunity.
Speaking of singing, there's a cowboy outlaw type singer named Ray Wiley Hubbard, and one of the lyrics in a song I like a lot talks about making sure your gratitude exceeds your expectations.
Oh, what a nice phrase.
There's always something out there to be thankful for, even on a birdless day. So let that be a lesson to everybody. I know I'm trying to live that. You are too.
Yeah, absolutely. We strived, as I know you do with your crew, we strived so hard to get a good show together every time we put one on, 28 minutes and some odd seconds. And if it didn't work, it didn't work. And we'd find some other thing to do to enjoy it. And, okay, one of the most fun things I ever did that was birdless was a show we did in, I think it was Arizona, maybe Nevada, where we did a segment where Dez met Dez in the desert. And we did that because there just weren't any birds. And so my director said, well, let's have some fun. So we drove out into this desert and we set up this scene. We took extra clothes so I could change clothes. And we opened up this scene with me and Hank walking down this old desert road all by ourselves. And this car pulls up from behind us. And in the car is Dez in a different shirt and a different car driving along the road and talking to me about it. And then he drives off. And I say to our viewers, I've seen that guy before. I'm not sure where, but he sure is good looking. And that was the end of our scene.
And that was back when you had to do it with tape, not with computer graphics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, gosh, that was fun too. I know you've done the same on your shows with just trying to get some. It's not all. I mean, honestly, you and I are taping bird hunting shows. How lucky can we get? And so I always try to remind the crew, look, this is, not many people get to do this. Let's enjoy it while we can. Precisely.
And on that note, you've cautioned us over the years, never, ever to spoil our dogs. But every time you tell us that, it rings hollow because you are in the act of spoiling your dog when you do it.
Yeah, I came up with that. I just got lucky with that. Scott, I came up with that idea and I thought, well, everybody wants to spoil their bird dogs. Let's take a little time and poke some fun at that concept of not spoiling your bird dogs. And gosh, we probably had more responses to those than anything else in our shows. And people would send me pictures of them spoiling their dog. I mean, it was a great thing to do. I just loved the heck out of that.
And every dog appreciated that one probably more than the humans who watched it.
Oh, absolutely. But they're like your guys. They're members of the family.
Yes, although we don't spoil our kids that much, do we?
I never did.
No, they're out in the back with an electric collar and a bowl of water in their pen. Yeah. Kids don't. I'm not serious. Really, I'm not. Don't worry. Your parents probably won't do that.
They probably won't. Probably being the operative term there.
Yeah, there are times when I'm sure every parent wishes they could turn the dial up and hit that red button, but it ain't.
Okay, I had my son Glenn on the show when he was grown up, and we didn't put this in the show, but I really wanted to. Glenn was having a really bad day. We were hunting in the prairie and we were looking for sharptails, and he, honestly, Scott, he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and he was a pretty good shot. And finally, he forgot he was on camera. And he said to me, "It's just not my day." And I wanted to put that in the show because I thought that was just hysterical. Glenn didn't find it all that funny.
No.
So we kept that out. Oh my gosh. You get a chance to do this, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I know you've done the same thing as I have. We put scenes in our shows where I've missed birds.
If I get a compliment about my show at all, Dez, it is, I love it because you shoot worse than I do.
Oh my God.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Really?
I was always relegated to the back of the band and the back of the bus on the band bus, and so I'm used to that stuff, so it's okay.
Oh yeah. And my director, I love him for this. When we first started these shows, I thought, okay, I got to hit everything. I got to hit everything. And he took me aside early in our relationship together and said, look, this is bird hunting, and sometimes it's not going to work out the way you want, and we'll use that and we'll play with it. And that's how we did all this. Unfortunately, my mother was a skeet shooting champion as a young woman and taught me how to shoot, so I didn't miss often. But oh my gosh, you just want to shout when you miss a bird like that.
Well, you have now that it's on the record, you have no excuses anymore with genetics like that. You better hit everything.
Right? I know. She was an amazing, and honestly, she was a tiny person. She was maybe 5'2", and when she was shooting, she probably weighed 105 pounds, and she shot a 12 gauge pump with a compensator on the end of it.
My shoulder hurts.
It had to weigh 142 pounds, and she'd take that thing out there and bust those clay targets, and won a number of skeet tournaments, and then later, even though she was right-handed, she was able to teach me how to shoot as a lefty, and we had her on a show when she was a senior. We had her on one of our shows, and she just loved that, and she was on a Hank show, and she loved Hank, and a rooster got up, and she didn't hesitate, man. She threw that gun up there and popped that bird. And the first thing she did was she went, yeah, like that on camera. So we put it in the show.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mother knows best.
Yeah.
I love it.
She was quite a gal.
Well, this has been quite an interview. I am so grateful to, we never get to talk at length. So this has been fun.
I know.
We'll do it in person the next time. But in the meanwhile, if you folks want some of the DVDs, they're out there. hwhproductions.com. Get all the details there. And leave a note on Dez's Facebook page, and of course on ours as well. Upland Nation is mine. Dez, yours is Dez Young, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Dez Young, yep. They can find me on there.
Great.
And just as an aside, it's really nice to talk to you again, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, we will get back together. I'm getting a good vibe about something that we've both done before that maybe we might do again. I'll keep you posted on that. In the meanwhile, this is the Upland Nation. I'm Scott Linden. That's Dez Young. Dez, I'm going to turn you loose to get some physical therapy for your vocal cords now that I've abused them for almost an hour. So thank you again. It was great talking with you. Stick around, everybody. We got a couple more things, including that prize. But Dez, thank you and goodbye. I call this segment, This Land is Your Land, and it is all about places you can go that you don't have to buy into, that you can just walk on in most cases, and access free of charge. One of my favorites is out here in the high lonesome of the Great Basin, western United States, just around the town of Winnemucca, Nevada. Now, I spend a lot of time out there, and the main reason is that town and that whole region is virtually all public ground administered by the Bureau of Land Management. Now, some people would suggest it's the Bureau of Land Mismanagement, but there's not a whole lot you can do to screw up sagebrush and juniper, rocks and sand, and a bump on the landscape every once in a while. The joy of that is chukars and quail love that kind of country. All around Winnemucca, you're surrounded by those yellow patches on the map that mean public ground that you can get to at no charge. Winnemucca is a great little town in and of itself. Of course, the home to the Nevada Chukar Foundation and their annual banquet. Good enough reason to attend. A Basque heritage and even a Basque restaurant, the Martin Hotel, if you like family-style meals and a little bit different kind of cuisine. check it out. All the lodges, restaurants, and even a casino or two, if that's the kind of thing you're interested in. It's all in Winnemucca, plus that easy access to hundreds of thousands of acres of public land. Now, there's no app for that, but if you get the BLM map of the area, it's pretty obvious. The yellow and brown spots are the spots you can access real easily. And then the rest of it, probably not. Look for cheatgrass and rimrock and start climbing uphill outside of Winnemucca, Nevada, and you might run into chukars. Stay in the bottoms. Mainly you'll find valley quail out there. You know, I'm going to start putting this stuff up on the uplandnation.com webpage. So if you're interested in more detail, check it out, uplandnation.com. uplandnation.com. And the Upland Nation podcast is brought to you in part by Dr. Tim's Natural Performance Dog Food. It's what I feed to Flick. He's buff. He's quick. He's got the stamina for 4 days in the field, and it's all because of what he gets fed. Okay, his trainer has a tiny bit to do with it, but barely anything. Dr. Tim Hunt, on the other hand, has formulated a number of dog foods depending on what your dog's needs are. Learn more at drtims.com. Find out where his ingredients come from and why he puts them in each formulation. DRTIMS, 30% off. Just use the promotional code UplandNation. And that'll do it for the Upland Nation podcast. Thanks so much for listening to this reprise broadcast of one of my favorite interviewees and a good friend, Dez Young. If you're looking for more information on where to hunt, don't forget to visit my website, findbirdhuntingspots.com. I'm Scott Linden. Thanks for listening. See you in the field.